The Gruber Morning Show. This is the Tesla Roadster version of our podcasts. I'm Pete Gruber.
Good morning. I'm Mark Schaffner. Glad to have everyone here.
And we asked AI to give us a backdrop that was a news studio and had an automotive theme, and this is what it came up with. And
There's some kind of interesting pictures there. We were talking about some of the asymmetric wheel pictures up on the wall. Looks pretty good though overall.
it's not bad, yeah. In the earlier podcast we just finished, by the way, it is now able to take titles in quotes, for example, and accurately insert those into whatever image you've requested. In the past, it used to have trouble spelling. It would never pass the spelling bee.
Well, yeah, it's like that writing that's just above the desk. It's just gibberish. It's on this one, but the other one was looking really good.
It was. So one thing we wanted to lead with was for those of you interested in doing a tour of our Gruber Motor Company building, it's always educational for people that show up. We had Brian White come yesterday with Futuraza, who actually came down from Seattle. And he is an influencer that lives in the EV space. In fact, he was in Austria with me. He went all the way
Oh,
there as well.
wow.
Yeah, saw him there. And he makes the rounds. He was in Muskegon, Michigan, in this last owners meetup. He's going to be in San Luis Obispo in July for the Tesla Takeover US. But again, for any of you interested in getting immersed in Tesla vehicles, especially the Tesla Roadster, or seeing some of the activities in a active service center, that's why people come here. It's very difficult for large companies like Tesla to allow social media teams to traipse through their service centers,
Sure.
insurance reasons, production type issues, all of that. But we welcome that sort of thing. So again, feel free to come visit us, especially if you're local. We probably get a tour a day these days, and it's a pretty busy place. The EV Preserve that we have actively going now, we've dedicated a building, one of our commercial buildings, to exotic car storage, and currently it's for Tesla Roadsters. Although we do have a one LaFerrari in there, and we have a Tesla Model S in there as well. The Tesla Model S, by the way, is a founder's car, which is for sale. It's on our Roadster matchmaking site, along with its mate, which is a founder's Tesla Roadster. Both of them are founders number 3. And that's the kind of function that this storage facility is going to be involved in. And our goal with it was to specialize in electric vehicle storage. We find oftentimes that the exotic car storage facilities that these cars are taken to may not remember how to do the charging protocols. And cars have gotten bricked, a number of them. They've come through our shop as a result. Rafael Demestri, for example, after he took the Roadster around the world, took it to the Munich Museum. It was good for a year. Then he asked for a 6-month, or they asked for a 6-month extension. And the new charge team wasn't aware of the charging protocols, and the car got bricked. So with our EV Preserve, as we call it, your Tesla Roadster or EV will always be properly charged. We have OVMS units in every car. We take telemetry information from the car, feed it to our control center. And the best part is, with this OVMS, it's also being sent to the owner's cell phone. So if anything is up with your car, you're aware of it at the same time that we are. Again, geared for EV and geared to Tesla Roadsters at this point. We counted 20 cars in there right now. And despite having offloaded quite a few cars from our main Gruber Motor Company service center, we're still out of room, it seems like, at the 203 building.
That's just how busy we are, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're interested, we'll be reporting a lot more how the storage facility is evolving, and it's a state-of-the-art facility geared to Tesla Roadsters. I've got an image to pop up here, Jesse. It's called Service Centers 5 copy. And what we do on a Tesla Roadster Facebook site called Tesla Roadster Owners Group, we keep a posting out there of service centers that are eligible and capable of accepting Tesla Roadsters. And this image that's going to get popped up here shortly is the latest one. We've updated it to include Salzburg, Austria, which we actually visited 3 weeks ago or so, and they are capable of not only repairing them, but doing the 3.0 battery swaps.
Yeah, I noticed that all of the ones in Europe that are listed there as able to service Roadsters can do battery swaps as well. And there are several here in the States and Canada.
hmm And for those of you that are aware of any that aren't on here, this is a owner-based feedback type list. We're looking for the owners to tell us which service centers are available. Tesla has promised at some point they're going to publish a list like this, and it's important to do because who wants to show up at their service center and be told, well, we don't do it anymore. You got to
Right.
go 200-300 miles north, which has happened, by the way. So, yeah, if you're aware of any, let us know either in the notes on the podcast after it's posted or email ev@gruber.com.
Hey, we have a couple of comments here this morning. Wood Doomboo says hi,
Welcome.
welcome. And on Instagram, iJoy Lanes is waving to us.
Welcome.
So welcome, glad to have you on.
So one of the things that was posted recently on Facebook actually was a Roadster owner that was saying, you know what, I'm going to be working on the front end of my Roadster. And this might be a good time to change that 12-volt battery because it's been 5 years. I was amazed that the battery lasted that long.
Wow, yeah.
We're usually seeing, in this climate at least, about 2, maybe 3 years or so. And anyway, he was asking, what do I replace it with? Well, let's go into some of that battery tech that's in the 2.0 Roadsters. That's the first thing to talk about. The 1.5 Roadsters, VINs 1 through 500, did not have a 12-volt battery. What they were doing was drawing 12 volts off of sheets 1 and 2 with a battery power board that was inside the ESS pack. They found some problems with that. It first of all, it degraded sheets 1 and 2 more than the others, and it wasn't as reliable as they preferred. In fact, I was test driving a Roadster, a 1.5, just last week, and it had a killer audio system in it. It was one of these owners that decided they're going to go over the top with their audio system. And I was listening to some AC/DC on the way home, cranking the tunes, and suddenly I got an alert, a power low. And it turns out that the 12-volt system was not expecting that much power drain from this audio system. It was designed around the stock
Oh,
system, but this thing had a power amp and, it was drawing more current
sure.
at 12 volts, of course. So that's one of the problems I would imagine people are going to run into is if you're upgrading or you're drawing more off 12 volts in a 1.5, you're going to need to take a different course of action, scale it back a bit in order to keep the car operational. So Tesla recognized that these kinds of problems were going to occur. In the 501 Roadsters to the last VINs, they put a 12-volt battery into the car. And it's not the size of a car battery. They used a motorcycle battery. We've got a picture of it here, Jesse. If you pop up motorcycle battery, they needed 12 volts. They needed a reasonable amount of amperage. And a motorcycle battery seemed like the expedient way to handle that. So by putting the battery in, it now takes all of that load off sheets 1 and 2, and you have something to replace. The difficulty they had is that the Roadster is already sort of space constrained. Where are they going to put it, right?
Right.
So they ended up choosing a spot underneath the passenger headlight, inside the fender, behind the fender skirt. So it's not something that you can pop the hood like in your old, muscle cars and just simply with a 1/2-inch wrench or 9/16 disconnect the battery and pop in a new one. It's going to take a little bit of work to get to the battery.
Right.
Um, the other thing was using a motorcycle battery. Fortunately, they did use the maintenance free batteries. The traditional older style motorcycle batteries actually had little caps on them, 6 of them,
Yeah.
and sulfuric acid. And you could actually, recharge or add acid as it dried up. These these types of batteries are called absorbent glass mat batteries. It still uses acid inside, but it's sealed, and there are some pressure release valves at the top. But other than that, you don't have to add acid to it. The other issue was you can see that this one says 8.4 amp hours. We have a replacement, and we'll talk about that in the in just a moment here. But the this type of battery is what's called a starter battery, and it's specifically designed with plates that deliver high current during starting mode, just like with your ICE vehicle car.
So they can do a burst of high current for a very short period of time.
Exactly. They're not the greatest at delivering steady power over long periods of time, and that's where a different type of battery comes in, which I have here. These are for oh, that's noisy. These are designed for electronic applications. And this particular one that we replace this motorcycle battery with is a 12 amp hour battery, or 12 volt, 12 amp hour. And we've got some pictures here, Jesse. If you can bring up the 12 volt battery picture, you can see what's on our e-store. So our recommendation is go with this electronic style battery. It is still absorbent glass mat or completely sealed, and it has 4 more amp hours of energy available. So, like this customer that had a high-end audio system that's going to draw more current, a battery like this with 4 more amp hours from 8 amp hours is going to be able to deliver more current, which means that if you have percussion, if you've got bass, if you're listening to what I was listening to, AC/DC, you're
Yeah.
going to need that kind of additional power. And it fits into the same cradle that the motorcycle battery fits into inside that fender wheel well or behind it.
Sure.
Someone pointed out on Facebook, make sure you check the mounting cradle for this battery because it tends to corrode and rust. And it depends on where you live, I suppose. If anyone's driving their Roadster in 4 seasons with salt on the roads, yeah, you're going to get some of that, those types of metal
Oh,
mounting,
sure.
cradles compromised. So anyway, those of you interested, a battery like this is on our e-store. It has 4 more amp hour. It fits right into the existing cradle, and we end up sending you a conversion kit, which allows you now to trim back the wires to get rid of the terminal lugs that go on the motorcycle battery, and you end up with fast-on tabs. These are 1/4-inch quick disconnects, which is what they use in electronics mostly, security systems, uninterruptible power systems, critical power, and it's an easier way to mount a battery with that 1/4-inch fast-on tab. And then you're back to changing those every few years or so. All right, do we have any questions?
Looks like we don't have any additional questions at this point in time.
Okay. We've got another image to pop up here, and this one is called Service Center Battery Analysis. We have a customer that sent us this, and this is from a Tesla Service Center. When it pops up here, I will read it with you. The car was beginning to lose range, and as their analysis here states, customer states in standard mode only seeing 30 miles of range. And this is indicative of a resistive cell in the ESS pack. And what's happening here is when there are 99 bricks, if one of those bricks begins to decline in voltage, you have a safety issue. If you continue to charge that at the same robust method as you would the good bricks, you're going to end up with a thermal event. So the battery safety management system in the Roadster begins to trickle back the ability to charge at to the higher levels. And what you'll typically see with a resistive cell symptom is instead of getting 160 miles charge in standard mode, it will begin to decline. And the rate at which it declines tells you how resistive that cell is. The worst example we had was one in Florida where it was losing 12 to 15 miles each night, each charge, and eventually got to the point where it was no longer drivable. It was actually
Right.
bricked. So we were fortunate to get that car on a transporter. She was able to drive it onto the transporter in Florida. By the time it reached our shop, it was already bricked, and we had to take it off without being able to drive it.
And that was like 3 days later, if I remember
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, it was a short period of time. So what Tesla recognized here was, and they described it this way: you have in the high voltage battery contains a weak brick. A brick contains one set of cells connected together. There are actually 69 connected together, and the voltage uh, is beginning to decline. So their prognosis was this battery will need to be replaced in order to remedy this condition. And again, it reinforces the fact that Tesla is not consistently doing recovery charges at the service centers.
Right.
Very few that I'm aware of were. There was one in Toronto, I believe, and I know that Torrance has a recovery charger. It may have been moved to Long Beach. But the bottom line here is, in the majority of cases, if you have a resistive cell and your range is declining, that car needs to get to a service center like ours very quickly because you don't want it getting any worse. And a resistive cell will actually parasitically drain that brick below 2 volts eventually. And now your other 68 cells that are still quite usable will have a chemical reaction and destroy themselves basically. And now you do need a new battery pack because bricks are not able to be replaced in Tesla Roadsters. But if you can prevent that, get it to a shop like ours, we will ferret out and find that needle in a haystack, that one resistive cell, and we will remove it from circuit by neutralizing it. What we do is we snip the fusible link wire and it's out of circuit. Still physically there, and the car never realizes that 1 out of 7,000 cells went MIA.
And the car will oftentimes go for years and years.
After that one resistive cell is snipped. Now, most people ask, well, how many of these resistive cells am I going to get? Well, we find that resistive cells are usually aberrant. They are a
Right.
one of. It is not a common decline that occurs in the battery pack. Certain things can stress it. If you brick your Roadster and you let it get to a very low state of charge, that can begin to affect the bricks if too much time goes by. And we're talking about 3 to 6 months. There are still resistive cells that can be removed or they can be neutralized, but there is a point of no return. So time is of the essence.
Oh, most definitely. I know that we've done some test engineering where we've uh, taken many cells out of series, and the car still behaves normally,
Mhm.
but we know that it's not going to be a usable brick or a usable sheet.
Right, right. All right, we've got another image to pop up here, Jess. It is the service plug image. And I should have brought one with me, but I didn't. The service plug in a Tesla Roadster is a vital step if you have a brick Roadster, not a resistive cell Roadster, though, because they're pulling a service plug to take the load off the battery pack. The other loads does nothing because your resistive cell is what's draining the battery inside the battery pack.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have anything but a resistive cell problem in a Tesla Roadster, by pulling that service plug, you're going to extend the life of that pack. In fact, what it does is it takes things like pumps off of the circuit. It takes the 12-volt devices, the door locks, the vehicle management system, even the switch pack draws some current. And in so doing, you are now giving the pack a chance to go into a coma So the problem can be resolved by a shop like ours.
Yeah.
Just to show you oh, by the way, let's stay with the service plug there. In the upper left-hand corner, that's that little orange service plug that sits in an inaccessible spot behind the battery pack there. And when I say inaccessible, you have to have thin, long arms in order to pull one of these. Those of us with, thicker arms or shorter arms have a very difficult time getting that service plug out. And after it's been sitting in there for a decade, it's also not as easily removable. Um, but when you can get it out, sometimes they break because it's gotten old, it's gotten brittle, and we have not yet sourced those service plugs. We know who used to make them, and they're looking, diligently. But when those break, and it's not if, we find that about 20% of the time, when a customer attempts to remove one of those, that service plug will break. And it's the handle housing that typically breaks. We rebuild those. And they're not pretty after they're done. It's a combination of epoxy, some copper reinforcement, but they are rebuildable. And until we get a reliable source for those, the rebuilding option is the strongest one. So if you've broken yours for whatever reason, feel free to send it to us. We've got 3 of them now, I think, that are being rebuilt in our service center. I know I did 4 of them this weekend, and 3, I believe, came from customers. So they are rebuildable, and we can fix that for you. These service centers have the same problem. We encourage them to pull that service plug rather than let the car sit there and continue to drain. We've got a chart here, and I'm going to show you why it's so important to get that service plug pulled. It's called discharge rates, Jesse. And this is a chart right out of the Tesla service manual. And here you can begin to see, it looks like Mike Aldia has joined us. Michael is one of the ESS battery pack gurus from the old Roadster days. First of all, he's saying, happy birthday, Pete. Thank you, Michael. Today is my 73rd birthday. So I hope they don't have any cake and parties and all that.
I don't know. I'll have to feign ignorance, but I do hope you have a happy birthday today.
Having a great birthday. My Facebook is blowing up too, by the way. I've got like over 2,000 friends on there, and it's a steady stream. So thank you all for recognizing my birthday. It happens only once a year, so I can deal with it. YouTube Obertowski says, hello, Mr. Gruber. And then Michael says, the dead fronts on the pack side of the service plug would fall off. Exactly. It's best to pull the service plug straight out and not at an angle. You're absolutely right. And if your arm is functioning once you've gotten it back there to grab the service plug, a straight pull is the optimum way to do it.
Which means that an impossible task becomes just a little more impossible.
Yeah.
It's almost like you want to have 2 elbows or something.
It is a challenge. So here we have a chart that actually shows what happens to the state of charge in a Tesla Roadster battery pack if you don't pull the service plug and do nothing other than wait. The orange and green line there shows the excursion from a 50% charge down to 15% within 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks or so. And in those red bands is when the Roadster gets bricked. The lower one, that is.
Yeah.
Now, you can begin to see how things change. If you leave the service plug installed in the pack, but you turn the APS off, the DC to DC converter, the thing that keeps the 12-volt devices fed, now that curve gets out way out there to 14 weeks, so it improves. But but the optimum way to make sure that your pack is able to be recovered is to do the blue line, which is service plug removed regardless of Roadster APS, because pulling the service plug eliminates the ability for the APS to function, or the DC to DC converter.
Right, and in 20 weeks, you see that it reduces less than 10% state of charge, so that is definitely the way to do it.
Right. And, I would challenge this graph because we had a Tesla Roadster battery pack out of a lightning green Roadster, had the service plug pulled. It sat outside in Phoenix, Arizona, folks. Well, I mean, it's
Mhm.
flat black. We've got extremely high temperatures here during summer. And a year and 2 months later, we fired that pack up and it was still functioning and good. So, without the service plug, it's fundamentally like having battery cells in inventory being stored. And
Right.
lithium ion cells maintain a charge for a really long time.
Correct.
So that's the fundamental reason, and there's a good visual there as to why you want to pull the service plug on a Roadster that either can't charge, has a technical problem of some type where it's unable to charge,
Hmm.
and you need to get it to a shop. This buys you time. All right, get rid of that image. So the service plugs, yeah, they are still, we're still trying to source them and unsuccessfully. By the way, Michael, if you have any suggestions or ideas, we know who made them. Even they can't find any at this point, at least. So, quick update on our NACS conversion project. Remember, we've been working on a conversion for Tesla Roadsters to the NACS socket,
Hmm.
which opens up a whole new world. We're still not doing supercharging, although that may come later, but it's certainly going to open up your charging options enormously. I talked to Henry Sharp, for example, and he makes the Can Junior and Can Senior. That is one option for you if you haven't had this NACS conversion.
Right.
But again, you have to take the converters or the adapters with you. If you're trying to charge from J1772, you're going to need the CAN Junior. If you're trying to do the NACS, you're going to need the CAN Senior. What this would allow you to do is to charge off of any NACS except for supercharging. We ran into a technical problem in that in talking to Henry Sharp again, who is very knowledgeable on the charging methods for the Roadster, having developed both of those adapters. He said doing a hot disconnect is going to be a problem. So we're now redesigning this whole NACS project to include a locking mechanism and the pilot signal removal so that we're not doing a hot disconnect, simply meaning that if you were to unplug that, you're going to get some arcing between the pins and the socket.
Hmm.
And over time, that's going to degrade the quality of the connection. So that's slowing things down a bit, but the project is still very much alive. We're still committed to it, and we hope to have a NACS solution for Tesla Roadsters. All right, we've got another image to throw up here. It's called BMB board cover. We have a customer in Czechoslovakia put through an insurance claim. They have water ingress in the main battery pack. And they're trying to figure out, where's this coming from? How's water getting into a sealed ESS Roadster battery pack? What I've highlighted there is what's called the Battery Management Board cover, the BMB board cover. By removing this, you now have access to 11 battery management boards, microprocessor based, that can be unplugged, serviced, fuses replaced on them, and then plugged back in. That cover on the front needs to have a urethane seal that's inserted with a caulk gun. And if you don't do that, the top of that battery pack during water times, car washes, rain, does get some water on top of it, and it can migrate down into the battery pack if that urethane seal is not sound.
Hmm.
Then it migrates down into the bottom of the pack, and you have immersion sensors, which is a strip that goes all the way around the ESS pack. Once those immersion sensors sense that you have water ingress or some form of impedance or resistance, it opens up the high voltage interlock loop, disabling your car. So we recommended that they, first of all, let the pack dry,
Hmm.
which oftentimes resolves the problem of it not being able to operate. and then take that cover off and make sure that on the front there is a wet urethane seal applied, and then the cover is mounted back on, and these problems should go away. All right. Now, the whole theme of this Roadster podcast is the sale of a special Roadster.
Yeah, I'm excited about this particular one.
So, Thomas West, who is a Roadster historian, by the way, and also an avid Roadster collector in Texas, has decided to sell his, as he words it, my beloved validation prototype 24. Only 19 validation prototypes made it into private hands, and 17 remain on the road today. The validation prototypes, by the way, came after the engineering prototypes, and Thomas is right. These are very rare because EPs and VPs were not supposed to make it out into the field. You can take a guess as to why they did get sold. Financial issues may be part of that. They were perfectly fine cars, but so 17 of the VPs are on the road today. This particular one has some other distinction in that it was a decorated marketing vehicle widely known as the Teacup Roadster. And if you've noticed on our thumbnail, we actually show a Tesla Roadster sitting on a table outside a mall, sitting on 4 teacups. And what the company was trying to do was to show the strength of their product, the strength of their teacups. Now, we did some rough math here. What's the weight per wheel?
Well, I actually found as part of the posting that it's the China shop estimated around 900 pounds per wheel sitting on the teacups. So there were 4 teacups, 1 wheel per teacup. Each teacup was holding 900 pounds, and it wasn't crushed by it.
Now, I saw another article that challenged that and said, now, wait a minute, the Roadster weighs 2,700 pounds. Where are they getting 900 some odd pounds from?
Right. And even at 2,700 pounds, that's still somewhere around 675 pounds per wheel.
Right.
Which, hey, putting a 675 pounds on a piece of glass is still pretty impressive.
So this particular Roadster has some fame, and one of them is it's known as a Teacup Roadster, and it was a company called William Ashley in Toronto that that had this display outside their store. It also, this car was featured in the May 2009 issue of Car and Driver, so it became somewhat popular. And as Thomas says, if you're interested in additional information about the car, I'm more than happy to share an endless amount of detail about this car. It is Arctic White, 2008, and the company that did this publicity stunt, William Ashley, it basically went like this in an article. William Ashley is proud to offer consumers products that are beautifully designed, durable, and embrace an environmentally responsible lifestyle. The Tesla on top of the teacups helps showcase our commitment to the environment and proves that bone china is truly the stronger ceramic around. They also said Wedgwood, which is, I guess, the name of this particular china, is made of the world's strongest ceramic material, thoroughly engineered and tested to be as sturdy as far cheaper purchases that will chip, break, or discolor after heavy use. More and more customers use Wedgwood as everyday dinnerware, as the lifetime cost is only pennies a day. What a better way to bring the sustainability of China to life than physically supporting a Tesla Roadster, the only green supercar on the planet, a pure electric vehicle that outpaces a Porsche 911 but produces 0 emissions and is twice as efficient as a Toyota Prius. Now remember, this was back in 2009, before
Yes,
there
I
were other
do.
EVs.
And and to think about that, back in 2009, the Toyota Prius was famous for getting 40 miles to the gallon,
Right.
and they're saying, "Hey, your Roadster's going to get 80," and
Hmm.
that's pretty close to true.
So this stunt took place September 10th through 21st, 2009, outside the William Ashley's flagship location in Toronto, Canada.
I would be interested to know if there are other pieces of glass, say lead crystal or something like that, that could support, in theory, a car like a Tesla Roadster.
You know, we've got plenty of Tesla Roadsters. We could probably test those theories and see what materials can support a Roadster.
We probably could.
Might be fun. So, staying on the topic, this is Thomas West in Texas. Most of you in the community know him. This was posted on a Tesla Roadster owners site, Tesla Roadsters Club. Hey, there's Thomas. He's chiming in. Hey, that's me, he says.
Yeah. Hey, why don't we show a picture or two of the teacups with the car?
Yeah. All right, Jesse, try on teacups -2. And this is probably the most important image here because it's showing one of four. And I love how clean that tire is. They
Oh,
detailed the
yeah.
heck out of this car. And according to Thomas, this pristine condition is still with the car. So this looks like quite a deal.
Well, Thomas, as we do with the matchmaking service, it doesn't matter. We're out here for the community wanting to promote cars that are for sale. I hope that you're able to sell your car quickly and for a good dollar amount.
And as we mentioned in the last podcast, one of the ways to help alleviate this Roadster for sale glut is to do promotion,
Yeah.
is to create demand, is to, talk about these cars. By the way, one thing we didn't mention, I think, in the last podcast, yes, we have 450 now pre-qualified Roadster buyers that we send these newest listings to.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also have a website that gets thousands of visitors each day, and we have a podcast like this. So we're more than happy to promote your cars and help you sell them.
Absolutely. The 500,000 plus subscribers will definitely help.
Yeah.
Hey, on TikTok, Van Gogh has joined us today.
He says, how's summer treating you all? Yeah, it's hot.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. We've got the humidity coming in now, and now's when you feel it. It's going to be a couple of months, and we grin and bear it, and then we're back to pleasant weather all year.
Pretty much. I mean, as summertime goes, I don't know about you, Pete. At our house, we had a great big old thunderstorm roll through overnight.
We didn't.
And it was great because that way this morning, sure, it's humid, but you got that fresh air smell, that rain smell that's so unique to the desert areas like what we have in Phoenix. And that's a nice part about summer for about 10 minutes.
Yeah. TikTok, Zippy Ding Ding says, no car is green because you need to build it. He has a point, and they're definitely both sides of the camp. My personal view, we need to get the fossil fuel burners off the roads. We need to stop polluting. And yeah, we're going to pollute in other ways perhaps, and then I go back to COVID. Remember during COVID when people stopped driving for a brief period of time, a couple of weeks or so?
Oh, that was amazing.
You could see South Mountain from my house now. At night, you could see stars.
Yeah. What happened when people stopped driving around COVID was a stronger argument for going green than just about anything I've seen in my lifetime.
Yep.
And yes, he's right. The car, even EVs are not green, not as green as they could be maybe, but they're a lot greener than the alternative.
Yeah, good point. YouTube Advanced Glazing Solutions asks, where can we find a Roadster for sale? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Go to grubermotors.com. There will be a tab heading that says Roadsters for sale, and you'll see about 50 of them that are for sale, various prices, which actually brings me into my next discussion here. We have a lowered price now. If you go up just a little bit, Jesse, there's a lightning green right there. Yeah. You notice that one there for $83,000? That's down from 120, I think, original asking price.
Yeah.
The car, it's here. It's immaculate. It is a lightning green, which is a limited edition color. There were only 33 originally produced, and only in the year 2011. And the car is fully functional, ready to go. If you're interested in any of the cars here, and there are about 7 or 8 or so that are physically here for sale, most of the owners have allowed test drives. And if you come to our service center, you're not only going to see these 6 that are for sale, but another 60 or more that are in various stages of either storage, repair, and you get to talk to people that are technically involved in these cars that can answer all of your questions. How do you maintain it? How do you charge it? What's the long-term prospects for these cars? What kind of deferred maintenance am I going to expect? And you'll be able to see and talk to the experts.
Well, and because we're providing this as a free service to the community, you're not going to be getting a biased sales pitch.
Right.
Very honestly, we care about the community thriving. We're not as concerned about a single person getting a certain dollar amount for their Roadster. We'll do things like promote this car. Hey, we've got a motivated seller here that's willing to has been shown he's willing to drop his price. Maybe we can get this car off the market sooner rather than later, and we're going to promote it to do so.
And at 83, he's in selling territory.
Yeah.
That's about where the Roadsters are selling these days. Okay, we've got one other item here. We've got a picture here. If you can throw up a picture called Mars Orbiter. This is a great guy that we're going to pop up here. His name is Conrad Buck. And Conrad was featured in the Berliner Zeitung. What that means in German is Berlin newspaper. And he was talking about his EV repair shop. By the way, Conrad used to work in the TV industry. And let me see if I can find that information for you here before we get into that. He's a trained television technician before he founded Mars Orbiter in the middle of Germany. And he's a master craftsman, and he has 2 journeymen. He says, and this is what the newspaper article was about. It was funnier in German, but I'll read it to you in English. He says, "We don't get our hands dirty." And he says, the traditional auto shops he's talking about now, they stink, they're disgusting, and you look like a pig in the evening when you get home. So in the EV shop that he works in, and by the way, Conrad is one of the master technicians on Roadsters nowadays. I was just there in Germany, didn't get to visit his shop, but even Tesla thinks very highly of his shop and his capabilities. There's an enormous amount of Tesla Roadster work taking place in his shop. He does everything from the deep dive electronics repairs, being he has a background in electronics, to the battery recovery and the battery repairs. So it looks like a wonderful option in Germany. But this Berliner newspaper had an article on him. And he continues, he says, "The stuff in normal automotive workshops is not only dirty, but also toxic. It causes breathing problems." And but he says the Tesla Roadster is what really took his breath away. And he was previously passionate about tinkering with combustion engines, especially vintage cars, which is the trajectory that most of us have in this business. We came from the ICE world. And it says in the article that he was particularly taken with Elon Musk's electric car. He thought that it was really stylish and unaffordable. That's why he initially only bought a new Tesla Model S for 100,000 euros.
Yeah, that's and Conrad Bucks, we've had him on our podcast as well. What a great conversationalist and just a great guy. A lot of respect to the Mars Orbiter team.
And a real benefit to the Tesla Roadster community. There are a number of independent shops emerging that are taking over some of the service for this. I know that Europe has a number of them, and unfortunately, when I was up in Flachau, Austria, I talked about some of the shops and I named them, and I feel guilty because I left out the guys in the UK. We've got Neil Wise there who's doing great work.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah. And there are many of them that have taken over some of the service. So I think that the Roadster service ability is going to continue without issues. So it looks like we're coming to a close on this podcast. For those of you interested in buying a Roadster, the Roadster matchmaking site definitely. But if you're interested in a very unique Roadster with a lot of history and a strong pedigree, a validation prototype is a definite collectible car. Thomas West in Texas is available, and he certainly would love to tell you more about the car that he's got that's for sale.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us. We will see you next week, and this closes another chapter of the Tessa Roadster podcast.
Great day. Happy birthday again. And we'll see you all next week.